What is up? My name is Kendra from Kendra VanDruff Watercolors, and today we are going to be painting a watercolor sunrise painting of Olympic National Park's Ruby Beach in Washington. I'll teach you step by step how to paint your own watercolor ocean landscape. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright y'all, we are going to get started on our Olympic National Park painting. We are first going to go over our sky. So I'm using just a sponge brush, but you could also use a large regular paintbrush if that's what you have on hand. And I'm going to go to about almost 2/3 of the length of the painting with the water so far. Alrighty, so our artwork is nice and saturated. Let's go ahead and start applying some color. I'm gonna mix a little bit of Prussian Blue with some Payne's Gray. And Payne's Gray is a nice kind of almost indigo navy tone. And it's one of my favorite colors to work with. It's just a really nice, beautiful, deep blue. I'm gonna mix some Prussian Blue with it, just to give it a little bit of a pop. And I'm also just gonna gently tap my brush into the wet left corner of the artwork here. There we go. And you can see, because it is nice and saturated, our color is bleeding out really nicely. And if you have little areas where the paint is not quite bleeding, you can always use a larger brush to help blend. Larger brushes can hold a good amount of water. I am using Princeton brushes, Princeton round brushes. This one specifically is the Aqua Elite series, size 12. Gonna want just a little bit more blue on this side as well. Just letting it do its thing with the water. I'm now just gonna layer just a little bit of Payne's Gray in this left corner. I really want the left corner to pop a little bit more than the right, just to have some variety. So you can kind of see the difference here. Alrighty. Now what I would like to do is mix a new color, kind of a nice pastel sunset color. And so I'm using Permanent Rose, Winsor and Newton, and with that I just want a touch of some yellow. Use cadmium yellow. There we go, just like a nice peachy rosy tone. And I'm going to add that into the bottom layer where we placed our water. It's such a pretty color. I love this, like salmony pink. Maybe bring just a little bit of it into the blue, some of it into this white area, just to gradually add it in there and incorporate it. I love the soft blends happening here. So pretty. Okay, I might add in just a touch of just straight up Permanent Rose. Just a few streaks of it, just to make it pop, add some more color contrast. Love the colors happening here. So pretty. Okay, so we are going to do something slightly similar for this next part. We are going to have about an inch's worth of waves right here just below this area. So what I want to do is actually just skip an inch real quick and do some similar color tones below where the waves are going to be placed. But I don't want these colors to totally bleed into what we've already painted. So that's why I'm leaving the 1 inch gap for the wave. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my sponge brush again. And we're going to use the same kind of color palette here. So the Payne's Gray and the Prussian Blue, Opera Rose, and Cadmium Yellow. Alright, that's about an inch or so, just above there. Alright, so I'm going to start with our Payne's Gray and Prussian Blue blend. And I'm starting with the left corner, kind of mirroring what's going on up here. And I'm just going to have a little bit stretch towards the right side of the page. Okay, I might add just a hair bit more. Just straight Payne's Gray into the left corner. Just add some more depth and contrast. Allow it just to do its thing and bleed into the rest of the page here. Alrighty, so I'm going to rinse my brush off and we are going to do that same nice kind of salmon pink shade with Permanent Rose and some Cadmium Yellow. Such a pretty color. I want to add some more Permanent Rose to that. Perfect. Alrighty, so now what I want to do is add this color directly into this white area here. Just letting the wet and wet watercolor technique really help blend these colors nicely. Then I'm going to rinse my brush and just use some plain Permanent Rose just to mirror some of the pink highlights happening. This area here is still wet from the previous waves, but it's reflecting what's in the sky, which is really pretty. And before we get to the next part of the painting, I'm just going to let the bottom of the beach here, this bottom region dry, as well as the top in the sky as well. Once this is dry, we're going to go into building some of the rock formations, not building, but painting. And we are just going to make sure to let this area dry, otherwise some of the colors we would apply next would bleed into the sky. So just about 5-8 minutes and then we'll get started with the rest. So we have our beautiful Opera Rose, the Salmon Orange, and the Prussian Payne's Gray blend. And I love the soft sunrise colors that we're getting here. It's just beautiful. Now, what we're going to do is kind of do an outline just above this line here of ruby beaches, beautiful rock formations. And I've been to this beach before with my sister. It is just so beautiful. The air is just so crisp and clean. There are pine tree forests lining the beach, and it's really close to the Hoh Rainforest, just a short little drive from there. And Olympic National Park just has so much to offer. There's so much variety, but one of these beaches in particular, Ruby Beach, was just stunning. To get the color that I would like for the rock formation silhouettes, I'm just mixing some Payne's Gray with some Mars Black. And I'm just using my size 6 Heritage Princeton brush. And I'm going to start over to the left here. And again, we're just using this line here at the bottom as our reference. And I am just going to do almost like the outline of like a tooth molar. Almost like just like a little square, a little tooth, kind of jagged, slightly irregular, giving it some irregular edges here. And the bottom of it has kind of these little arms coming out here. And then I'm just gonna fill this area in with our color. Beautiful. And then I'm gonna give it just a little bit of a connection to our next really large main boulder here. And I'm gonna go up same length as this tooth area right before I start to angle and veer off towards the right, and I'm slowly moving towards the upward corner of my page. There we go. And then I'm just going to give it a little bit of a divot here. You want some irregular curvature happening. And then finally this area is going to stop right up here and slowly start to angle down. Again, I'm giving some irregular edges to this rock formation. There we go. So it's almost like a irregular angled V, and the V is pointed towards the right corner slightly. Alrighty, and then next I'm just going to connect it just a little bit to another rock formation. Just a nice pointed tip top right here, and then this guy is also going to connect to one that's running off the page, just like so. And I'm going to just kind of outline irregularly because below there are waves, so it's not a perfect straight line of black here, just slightly irregular. And from there, I'm just gonna fill in this silhouette with our Mars Black Payne's Gray blend. Okay, and this gap here again is our wave. So what I would like to do, because this wet area where the waves were once before is reflecting and still wet, and it's reflecting the sky, I want to add just some notes of reflection here from these silhouettes that we just painted. So I'm gonna just mix a little bit more of this black and Payne's Gray, but I'm gonna water it down just a little bit. It's gonna be slightly softer, starting with this little tooth guy. I'm gonna go ahead and add just a soft reflection. And to help soften the reflection more, I'm just going to take some plain water and dab my brush of some of the color and let it gradually ombre and kind of fade out a little bit. And the reflection, I like to keep some irregular edges, so that way you can kind of get that watery loose ripple effect. Now I'm going to go ahead and start here for the next watery reflection, kind of just following along the length of our boulder here. And I'm softly just going left to right with my brush, leaving some little bits of gaps popping through. Go ahead and add some more kind of ripply edges using the tip of my brush. As I get towards the top, I'm gonna water down my color just so I get a lighter hue. And I'm just gonna make sure that the edges are irregular and that it's kind of fading as we get lower. And I want this bottom area to really be the most saturated since it's closest to the boulder. Alrighty, I'm gonna mix just a little bit more of my Payne's gray and Moore's black just to add just a little bit of reflection of this little peak here, and just a little bit over here as well. And I'm going to just take some plain water and just help soften this reflection by just adding plain water to this area. And I'm just going to go back into these edges here and just make them more irregular here. I want to deepen some of this color even more. Beautiful. Love the reflections happening here. I'm going to go ahead and let this area dry, and next up I will add some birds in the sky and then our details with our waves. Alrighty, so now it is time to add some more finer details with some birds in the sky, some trees on top of our large ocean boulder, and some more details in the reflective water below. Okay, so I'm going to use my size 2 Princeton brush and my size 6 as well. To start off, I'm going to go with my size 6. I want to add some more details in the left corner region, and I'm going to utilize our Payne's gray just a little bit, just watering it down slightly. And I really want the ripples in this left region to be kind of angled, so I'm painting them almost like they're pointed towards the right region of the artwork. So I'm just softly adding some really loose brush strokes with a good amount of pressure to start, and then I'm slowly lifting using the tip of my brush towards the boulder here. So belly of the brush first, and slowly lifting. I'm going to gradually make my way just a little bit towards the right area of the artwork. And I kind of want to slowly soften some of the ends of these waves just a little bit by adding just some water on my brush and gradually allowing the water to just soften some of these fine edges. And I kind of want the lower corner region to be a little bit darker, so I'm just going in again to this left corner area just to add some definition. Might add just some soft, very subtle areas to the right here just to finish off the bottom region of the artwork. Okay, maybe just a little bit over here as well. Okay, so now at this point, I would like to add some pine tree silhouettes. And I'm going to use my size 2 Princeton brush, and I'm just going to use some black and a little bit of Payne's gray. And I'm really just going to use light pressure in the tip of my brush for this part. I'm going to start with this outer edge here, and I start with a straight line, and then very loosely I am just going to add some kind of brush strokes using the belly of this size 2 brush, just to have some lines on the left and right side of this trunk. And I'm letting some of the areas of the sky pop through, so it's not solid. Black just over there, just adding a little bit, keeping it super loose, working my way towards the left side, starting with kind of a line as my guide, and then adding some very loose brush strokes on either side. Maybe this one has slightly more of a gap. And I'm making sure that the bottoms of these trees are slightly wider than the tops. So the tops are very delicate and pointy, and the bottoms are a little bit wider. So kind of using kind of like a cone shaped silhouette. I'm gonna do another one here. Maybe this one has really large branches towards the bottom instead of the one towards the right, just to give some variety. Again, I'm working my way in kind of a cone silhouette shape, letting some of the sky pop through. Alright, then I'll have one final small pine tree towards left here. And just kind of balance out the sky towards the right. And there we have our little pine trees. Next up, I really would like to add some birds in our sky. So I'm going to use just straight black for this part. And because I feel like we have sort of a direction here that the painting is pointing towards the right corner, I want to just continue with that for our flock of birds. And for our birds, I'm gonna again angle them so they're flying this way. But to paint them, what I like to do is start with really light pressure with my hand and do kind of like a flat, rounded V shape. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of an indentation in the center, just like so, giving the silhouette of the body of the bird versus the wings. And I want a few just scattered throughout unevenly. Some may be larger than others and some barely there, just really delicate and far away. Okay, so those are our birds. Next, and not least, we're gonna add some waves here. We've still got this nice white stripe that we gotta figure out. So what I am going to do is add some peachy permanent rose, just like we did. And I'm gonna add some of that towards the bottom here. And then I also am going to have some areas of white still remain as kind of the foam of a wave. But before we do that, I'm going to stop this video. I am loving how this painting is turning out so far. We are on the final home stretch, adding our waves. Okay, so I am going to mix some of that really beautiful sunset kind of sherbet salmon color using Permanent Rose by Winsor and Newton and a touch of cadmium yellow. And I'm going to go ahead and add that color kind of at the border, bottom area, just like so. All right, and then from there, I want to add some touches of blue. So I'm going to go for Prussian Blue with a little bit of our Payne's gray again. And I'm going to add just a little bit of it towards the top. And I'm going to make it pop a bit more by adding even some more Prussian Blue. There we go. And I'm going to add just a nice, simple, irregular layer of this Prussian Blue and Payne's gray blend, just to show that this is indeed an ocean over here. Okay, so now what I want to do is we have this white gap. So I want to take my size 2 Princeton brush for these finer details and kind of gently outline using the tip of my brush to kind of give definition to the whitewash that's just above this line. Really just allowing this line to be super irregular. Lovely. And now I'm going to do the same thing just above. I just want to kind of give some areas that have some more defined areas of blue and just a bit of the whitewash popping through. So the more irregular this white area is coming through, the better. Okay, so now what I want to do is add just a little bit of definition to this orange divider line using the same Payne's Gray Blue blend, and I'm just going to use the tip of my size 2 brush to kind of define it slightly, allowing some irregular line work to kind of break it up because we don't want it to be such a perfectly straight line. From there, I'm going to add just a little bit of an imitation of reflection from our larger boulder here to be in this area as well. I love how this painting just has such soft pastel tones, and then the contrast of these boulders really makes it pop. And the birds up in the sky, the highlight of the clouds and the fog from the Pacific Northwest just makes your eye kind of flow throughout the sky and into the details as well later on in these ripples from the reflection of the boulders. Alrighty, now for one of my favorite parts, let's peel off this painter's tape. I so enjoyed our painting today. I hope you had fun doing this Ruby Beach Olympic National Park landscape. I love all of the colors and the reflections in the water and just the soft blends using wet and wet watercolor technique. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any further tutorials that I'll be releasing here on my channel. Also, I wanted to show you guys, I have some of my watercolor illustrated micro puzzles, and these guys are both on sale right now just for you. I have one of Ruby Beach at nighttime with the galaxy sky, and It's from the perspective of sitting in a camping tent, which is super cute. And then this one here is of Hurricane Ridge, a different part of Olympic National Park with a beautiful mountain range. So use code KB Watercolors at checkout. I'll link that in the description below, so that way you can get 10% off your order. Thanks again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next tutorial.